working on how ICT can actually drive green transformation and support green transformation. So we will have a few keynote speech before we get to the panel. Two of them. The first will come from senior management from Huawei. So I would like to give you, then we'll make the presentation to you. Yeah. It's a presentation.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. So I think hello? Okay. So it's my pleasure to be here with today. I would like to share what's the solution to promote carbon neutrality and what's the Huawei vision and the strategy for the carbon neutrality. So today, frankly speaking, today we are still living the era of the carbon-based energy. But we all know, in short term, we will face the challenge of the carbon emission, and in the long term, we will face the energy exhaustion. But as we all know, energy is the foundation for the human civilization development. So for energy transition is vital to the advancement of the human civilization. So according to Huawei experience, we firmly believe there are 4 key ways for the energy transition. They are decarbonization, electrification, digitalization, and intelligence. So first, let's see what's the significance of the decarbonization and the electrification. For decarbonization, it's talking about the energy generation. So I think it will drive the energy shift from the fossil energy to clean energy. And last year, the renewable energy only accounted for 28% of the total energy generation. But in order to achieve carbon neutrality, this proportion will be improved to 91% by 2050. And during the process, I think PV will grow very fast. And it will grow from 240 gigawatt installed capability last year to 400 gigawatt this year. And it will exceed 600 gigawatt 2030. And for electrification, it's talking about energy consumer side. For energy consumer side, it means electricity will become the main energy consumer. So it will grow from the 22% to 51% by 2050. During this process, electric vehicle will play most important role. According to IRENA estimation, so the electric vehicle will grow from 30 million last year to 360 million 2030. And at that time, 1/3 will come from China. So this is decarbonization and electrification. So for digitalization and intelligence, digitalization, as we all know, today 5G, AI, and cloud develop very quickly. It not only become the platform to improve efficiency, it becomes the platform for innovation. And for intelligence, as we all know, this year, the ChatGPT has triggered the revolution for the AI. So according to Huawei experience, it will grow 500 times by 2030. We firmly believe intelligence will change the whole industry. So with this trend of the decarbonization, electrification, digitalization, and the intelligence, we firmly believe the energy world and the digital world will be deeply integrated. So we firmly believe greater change will take place in the coming years for the energy infrastructure, because the power electronic technology, AI, and the digital technology will further integrated together, and the energy generation, grid, loads, and the energy storage system will integrated together. It will make the energy be utilized much more efficient, and it will make the resources allocated much more efficient than before. So this is the first I want to share with you. Second, I want to share with you what's the Huawei strategy and vision. Because since the beginning, Huawei has invested a huge budget for the decarbonization, and we promote the ICT innovation, the material recycling, and the supply carbon reduction to minimize the carbon footprint of Huawei products. Especially 2 years ago, Huawei has built a new company we call Digital Power Company. This company vision is to integrate the digital technology and the power electronic technology together to develop the clean energy and enable energy digitalization to build the new and the green and the future. So our solution focuses on 5 domains. The first is clean energy. Second is energy digitalization. Third is transportation electrification. And the fourth is green ICT infrastructure. Last one is smart energy. So I think time is limited, but I would like to share 5 the best practice in each domain. For the first story I want to share with you is about the energy storage system and the grid forming technology. This happened in Saudi Arabia. In Saudi, we have a Saudi government build one project in Red Sea. We call we say it's the Red Sea project. This project includes 400 megawatts PV and 1.3 gigawatt hours energy storage system. This project every day produces 2 million kilowatt hour green energy, and it will meet the 1 million people the energy demand. It's the biggest micro grid project in this world till now. Why I want to share this project with all of you? 2 things. First, for the energy storage system, the biggest concern is the safety. How can Huawei issue the safety of this biggest project? As we all know, in the past 30 years, Huawei focused on digital technology. So we utilize digital technology to guarantee safety of power electronic technology. What we have done in Saudi is we built the cloud. We deploy big data analysis platform on this cloud, and we install sensors in the energy storage side. With the connection technology, each temperature, voltage, and current of the battery will be monitored in real time. In this way, if there's some risk for the battery, Huawei AI big data analysis platform can produce warning 24 hours in advance. 24 hours in advance. And what's the prediction rate? It's more than 99.8%. So this is the first. I think in this world, no other company can do like this, because we utilize digital technology. In digital technology area, Huawei number 1 no doubt. Second, what's important for this project is, in this project, we develop the grid forming capability to guarantee Red Sea city become the first city 100% powered by the green energy. What's the grid forming? Grid forming is we provide the same capability as the traditional synchronous generator set. It changes the operation model from grid following to grid forming. It will address the challenge of the grid instability caused by the increasing penetration of green energy. Especially this system will build the new power system only rely on clean energy. Frankly speaking, this contribution can compare with 5G in telecom industry. So this is the first story I share with you. All of this is a little complicated. I prepare slides, but I don't know why. They cannot show to you. The second story I want to share with you is about our PV system. So today, there is the biggest PV plant in China. The capacity is 2.2 gigawatt. So what that means? 2.2 gigawatt PV plant. It covers 56 square kilometers. It includes 7 million PV modules. So it's a huge change for operation and maintenance. What about we do? If we ask people to check 7 million PV modules, it needs 5 months. But Huawei with digital technology and intelligence, we develop IB curve diagnosis technology. With this technology, we only need 15 minutes to finish all the scanning. From 5 months to 15 minutes, it's not only save the cost for operation and maintenance, it improves the energy yield. So this is what we have done in the PV and the energy storage system. The third story I want to share with you is about the AI infrastructure. 2 years ago in China, we have a Shenzhen government to build the biggest AI infrastructure. And it ranked #1 in the past 3 years because this is the first extra scale AI infrastructure. Why I want to share this story? Because this infrastructure have two unique features. First is for this AI infrastructure, we utilize prefabricated module construction technology. This technology adopts assemble steer construction building plus prefabricated approach instead of the traditional is a reinforced concrete plus on-site the building. What's the difference? We only take 5.5 months to complete all the process from approval to service rollout. Say that the water recording for the data center, especially in this project, we utilize Huawei iCooling systems to reduce PUE. I think all of you are experts understand what the means of PUE. So we can help to reduce 10% of the PUE. So today, global data center consume 500 billion kilowatt hour electricity each year. If Huawei energy efficient optimized technology be used, it means it will save 50 billion kilowatt hour electricity every year. So the first story I want to share with you is about the electric vehicle. As you know, today electric vehicle has developed very quickly, but there are 3 challenges. First is slow charging. Second is short range. The third is about the battery safety. In order to address these 3 challenges, Huawei position ourselves as a solution of powertrain and charging network. So what's the means of Huawei powertrain for the electric vehicle? We utilize the world-class intelligent oil cooling technology. It can help the car acceleration from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour within just 3 seconds. And for Huawei charging network, in this zone in China, we have launched the high voltage liquid cooling charger. And the full charger connector up to 600 kilowatt. And the voltage can achieve 1,000 watts. What that means? It means this system can support 1 second charging, 1 kilometer run. It means just with a coffee break, you can finish your car charging. It will give you the same experience as refueling. I think the last one I want to share with the friends come from Itisanat. The last story is as industry intelligence acceleration. The energy consumer from telecom network and data center increased very sharply. According to Huawei experience, in the coming 10 years, it will rise from 3% of the total energy generation to 6% energy generation or more. So in the past 30 years, Huawei has provided the leading ICT technology for our telecom operators. In the future, we will hear from our telecom operator transform from the energy consumer to energy producer. For example, in Turkey, Turkcell, an outdoor base station can produce 12,000 kilowatt hours per year. It can achieve the 70% of the energy demand. And in Australia, telecom campus, one campus can produce 7.5 million kilowatt hours. And it can achieve it will cover 60% of the energy consumer. In China, the energy storage system of the base station can become the part of VPP. It will attend the peak shaving and frequency regulation. What means it can help the telecom operator at $1,000 per base station. So today, globally, for telecom, there are 10 million wireless base stations, 20 million data center racks. If all of these facilities be involved for the VPP, for the energy production, it not only accelerate the carbon neutrality, it will do more contribution for telecom operators. So I think maybe the previous slide. So maybe I share these 5 stories. You will ask why we can do this. First, because R&D. In the past 30 years, we pay more attention to R&D. For example, last year, Huawei revenue $100 billion, but we invested $25 billion for R&D. It's almost finished, no need. So $100 billion revenue, but we invested $25 billion for R&D. $25 billion, what that means? It ranked number 4 globally across all the countries, all the industries. But the proportion, 25% is ranked number 1. This is first, because we invest the huge resources for R&D. So this is the reason we can keep the leading position in each industry. The second reason is we integrate digital technology and power electronic technology together to create a value. For example, as I just mentioned, for battery management system, for IV curve diagnosis technology, for eye cooling, all of these depend on digital technology, like artificial intelligence, like a big data analysis platform, like the cloud. So this is the reason today in this world, for digital technology, frankly speaking, no doubt Huawei number 1. For power electronic technology, maybe we top 5. But if you want to find one company cover both technology, only Huawei. Okay? So I think for the carbon neutrality, I firmly believe it's not only the trigger, the revolution for technology, it's a trigger for the social and the economy. So all of us need to work together to enhance the cooperation for the carbon neutrality. And for Huawei side, we not only enhance the investment for ICT, for the innovation, for technology innovation, but also we will build the health ecosystem to achieve the carbon neutrality together. Last one, I want to share one sentence with you, because before my current position, I was Huawei president of Middle East region for 10 years. So 2019, when I had a meeting with His Highness, the Vice President and Prime Minister of UAE, His Highness shared this sentence to me. While others try to predict the future, we just created. This is the UAE culture, and this is the Huawei culture. So I hope, first, the carbon neutrality, there are a lot of opportunity. At the same time, there are a lot of the change. So we need to work together from the government, from the customers, from the providers. We should share hands with hands, work together to create the green and the brilliant future for our next generation. Thank you very much. Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Charles Yang. Thank you for your brilliant presentation. Yeah, and we are sorry that we were not able to have the presentation, but actually you made it great. And most of the things that we needed to know about your presentation was extremely clear, so thank you. So Mr. Charles Yang is Senior Vice President of Huawei. Now the next presentation, the next keynote will be Mr. Jeffrey Sachs, Special Advisor to the Secretary General of the United Nations and Chair of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solution Network. Mr. Sachs, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. In the context of Huawei's great achievements, a keynote is a little bit of a glorification of what I can say. Huawei has great solutions, wonderful technological breakthroughs. We're very proud, and I'm a great admirer of Huawei and have been for so many years. I guess what I want to say is something a little bit odd and a little bit off the topic in a way. Huawei has done so many great things. So what's the reaction of the United States? To try to kill Huawei. This is the real problem that we face in this world. We have a great company that has made incredible innovations. When I came to Shenzhen many years ago to meet with the leaders of Huawei, I was treated to displays of how to achieve low-cost 5G in poor countries. Can you imagine, as a development economist, something more exciting than that? And there's very little more exciting because Huawei produces one solution after another. But what is the real problem? All these solutions, the United States is trying to stop them right now, because it's China doing it, not the United States doing it. And the real problem that we face at COP28, period, is that we're not cooperating properly on a global level. Cooperation is hard in general. It's nearly impossible for my country, I'm sorry to say, because the United States idea of cooperation is we're number one, everyone else follow. That's the whole story. And this is why we're in such a terrible situation right now. We're here, the 28th meeting with the climate crisis far worse than it was 28 years ago, with the warming accelerating, with the emissions still not having even reached a peak, much less starting to come down significantly as we need, having lost the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit because there's no way that that is going to be achieved. I know everybody knows that. We're already, in the next few years, already built in more temperature increase than the 1.5 degrees. And what do we have when we come here? We have a war in Ukraine, which is caused by the United States trying to expand NATO, which is ridiculous, because why would the U.S. push its military right up to the Russian border and expect anything else from the disaster that it's gotten right now? We have a war in Gaza very close to here, because the UN Security Council has for 56 years said there needs to be a Palestinian state alongside Israel, and it's not happening, and the United States has been blocking that. And we have a world of tension that, by the way, I study it for a living, so I just want to say in this context, where does the tension come from? Well, I have to say to my Chinese colleagues, the tension comes because you're too successful. That's all. No, seriously. It's not because China has done anything to provoke this. Honestly, the U.S. reaction that the U.S. says we've got to be number one, no one else can be alongside. But the problem with the United States is that there are 1.4 billion successful people in China, and the United States is only 1/4 the size, so it can't be bigger always. It's arithmetic. It's very simple. I'm not giving up hope that we can reach cooperative outcome. And I think that China's diplomacy has been extremely smart. I had the privilege last week under China's leadership of the UN Security Council this month to testify in the UN Security Council at the invitation of the People's Republic of China to talk about how we could achieve peace in these war zones right now. Every one of them could stop today. These are political. They're not our fate. There are choices, bad choices. I sat right across from my ambassador of the United States of America because the U.S. could stop these wars immediately. What we need, really, ladies and gentlemen, is cooperation. And we need to scale up the solutions. We need to understand that the system that we have right now, the market system, will not reach half the world's population on its own. Because markets are very good for people that have money, and they're very cruel for people that don't have money. It's very simple. Markets respond to money. They don't respond to poverty. They can help solve poverty, but someone has to finance that to start with, because poor people can't start out financing their own solutions. So we need cooperative approaches. We need great companies like Huawei that provide the technologies, and then we need solutions to scale them up. And another solution coming from China, which I want to mention, is, of course, the Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative is another very good idea. Okay, I can say the Chinese government copied that idea from 2,000 years ago, because the Silk Road was a very good idea. It connected Rome and China. There was a long-distance trade already between the Han Empire and the Roman Empire, and it worked very well. China wasn't selling semiconductors at the time. It was selling silks to the leading ladies of Rome very successfully along the Silk Road. And the Belt and Road Initiative is to recreate an interconnected world. Again, the United States badmouths the Belt and Road Initiative every time it opens its mouth. It calls it a debt trap. It calls it a terrible initiative. This is nonsense. This is just rhetoric, ignorant, nasty. We need cooperation. So if we have the Belt and Road, we need the United States to say, we'll partner with you. We'll help scale up the solutions. We've also got solutions. By the way, there are some good companies in the United States too. And we could work together cooperatively to scale up the solutions, especially in the poorer countries. And the Belt and Road Initiative offers financing for that. And another great Chinese initiative, and there will be an event on December 5th that I'm very proud to be taking part of, is something called GuideCo. Do people here know about GuideCo? Here. Okay, good. All right. So GuideCo is extremely important for this story because it's the Global Energy Interconnection, GEI, Development Cooperation Organization. And it's the China State Grid that says we have a very good idea. What is the China State Grid good idea? China, you know, has a great deal of zero carbon energy, but all the way in the West. And the big population is on the East Coast. So you have to move electrons a long distance. And the China State Grid has developed wonderful technology for high voltage direct current transmission from Western China to the eastern seaboard of China, where most of the people live. And it works extremely well. And so the China State Grid has said this is a general principle. Where there's good sunshine is not necessarily the population centers, or where there's great hydropower is not necessarily the population centers. So we need to connect the high quality, zero carbon energy with the population centers. And they've created the Global Energy Interconnection Analysis. And it's the best engineering analysis in the world of how different regions can interconnect together. And with the financing assumptions. Now you put Huawei 5G and smart remote management of infrastructure together with GEI interconnectedness, together with Belt and Road, you've got a pretty powerful combination of solutions that could reach really billions of people in a short period of time. And if Europe, which unfortunately listens too much to the United States, and the United States would get the idea that cooperation, joining forces together, we could solve these problems in short order, we really would reach a constructive approach to the world. By the way, we would save a lot of money on armaments, because the last thing we need in this world is an arms race. And the United States is now spending, if you add in everything, so you add in the Pentagon, the hidden accounts, the CIA accounts, the Homeland Security accounts, the veterans accounts, it's $1.5 trillion a year on war stuff. And then they found $17 million for the losses and damages fund. You can't make it up how misguided this approach is. So if we really got together, we'd also have a phenomenal saving on all the waste of the wars, the losses. Knocking down all the buildings of Gaza is not exactly sustainable. And it's going to cost a lot of money to rebuild that we don't have, aside from all the tragic loss of life. So the main point I want to say is, first, Huawei's a great company. Second, fantastic solutions. Third, the challenge is scaling up the solutions. Fourth, the main problem is half the world that can't afford directly to pay for the solutions on their own. We can't just leave them out of the world. The whole idea is the world's rich enough to actually bring everybody along. And by the way, interestingly, within China, if I may say so, at the beginning of China's reforms, the fast growth was all along the coastal areas. Now it's the whole country. But around 2002, the Chinese government asked me, go to the West and have a look at what's happening in the West, which is lagging behind our coastal development, and give suggestions about how Western China can catch up. They didn't need my ideas. China has lots of good ideas, but we spent 2 years, my wife and I, 2 long summers touring the cities of Western China and giving some suggestions. And China had the idea, we need to bring the whole country along. It's not good enough for it just to be Shanghai and Hangzhou and Shenzhen. We need the whole country to be brought along. And so they have regional policies that focused on that, and they're working. We need global policies in the same way that make sure that all regions are brought along. There is no part of the world that has any, let me put it this way, every part of the world can achieve rapid economic and sustainable development. every part of the world, including the poorest places. And China is a role model for that because in 1980, when Deng Xiaoping's reform started, China had 70% extreme poverty. And it's gone now. And so China did that in 40 years. There's not a place in the world where poverty should remain. So use the roadmap, use Huawei 5G. It's really good, it's really low cost, it really can expand the scale everywhere. Join the Belt and Road Initiative. Maybe it will end up connecting 192 countries. Maybe the United States will be the last one. Or maybe the US will get smart and say we're going to partner together. But if we really join forces, stop the wars, stop the fighting, connect, which we can do, and live in a harmonious world, we will actually achieve the goals of the purpose that we're here to make a safe, a climate-safe, sustainable world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs, for your remark, your keynote remark. Now, I will invite, without further ado, the panelists to join me at the podium. First, Mr. Safder Nazir. He is Senior Vice President at Huawei Middle East and Central Asia. Yeah. Next, Mr. Alexandre Reis Suqueira Ferre, Commissioner, National Telecommunication Agency of Brazil. Next panelist is Mr. Hatem Douidar, CEO of ENE. And then Mr. Mohan Munasinghe, former Vice Chairman of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation to join this panel. A very important panel, how we can leverage the ICT sector to support a green transition. The ICT sector has a very important potential for supporting a green transition. This is because the most transformative type of climate and sustainability action are actually enabled by digital technology. So it is very important to mobilize the digital technology because the green transition will necessarily be a twin digital and green transition. But for the ICT sector to play fully its role and mobilize the potential and the opportunity that this market is offering, it has to go beyond just serving its vertical. It has to go beyond and also contribute in supporting the achievement of the need of the many people, including in cities. So we will have, for this panel discussing the ICT sector and the green transition, several presentations. This will be the format of this session. The first presentation will be done by Mr. Safdar Nazir, Huawei Innovation and Practices in Empower Green Area.
Thank you.
You have the floor.
Can I have my slides up, please? Our technical team. Hopefully, we haven't lost them. Right, yeah. Good afternoon and nearly evening, everyone. Thanks for staying around, especially on a public holiday in UAE. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about the Net Zero Campus and why we believe it's a significant part of achieving net zero overall for our cities and countries. Let me start by looking at this number, 1.847935 and counting. Does anybody know what this number represents? No? Well, I'll tell you. According to the Global Footprint Network, it's a number of planet Earths we need to provide the raw materials and absorb the waste that we're consuming. Now, that's a global average. Some countries are below 1, and some countries are multiples above 1, which is simply not sustainable. 1.8 Earths we don't have. We only have 1, and that's why the world is not enough. What can we do about it? According to United Nations figures, if I remember rightly, about 78% of energy consumption is in cities. About 60% plus of carbon emissions come from cities. But cities only occupy about 2% of the surface area of the world. Now, if we look at the largest urban developments or megacities, and a megacity by definition is a city with more than 10 million population. In 1980, which was before I was born, if you buy that, right? We had about 5 megacities worldwide. If we go on to the year 2000, we had 2.8 times, that's nearly 3 times as much population crammed into these cities. And if we go on to 2020, 6 times as many. And finally, if we look forward to 2030, we have over 7 times the population from 1980. And look where all the cities are. They're the mega cities. They're all mostly in Asia. If you listen to or have read a book by Dr. Parag Khanna called Move, he actually talks about this and the challenges of global mobility because of the need of resources and sustainability. So what can we do about it? If we are building new cities, of course we can plan them from the beginning. But most cities around the world, that's most of the population around the world, we live in existing cities. And they expand and they redevelop. And that's why it's important for us to be able to address these existing places. There are some key principles that we need to adopt when addressing these challenges. And I call this Ecopolis. That's sustainability, resilience, and circularity. These 3 principles will help us transition from metropolises to ecopolises. But how do we do it, and how can we bring it down to bite-sized chunks that we can all handle? And from our perspective, we see a campus as a bite-sized chunk of a city. The United Nations SDSN, the Solutions Development Network, Sustainable Solutions Development Network, have a program for net zero campuses, but it focuses really on university campuses. The way we look at a campus is beyond just a university. Any subdevelopment effectively under a single operation can be considered a campus. So I'll play a short video just to introduce the idea. It's only about 1 minute long, about what is a campus.
Campuses form the building blocks of cities.
Can we turn the volume up,
Main
please?
carrier of work and life. A key to economic development for a connected and intelligent world. High-quality 10G campus network combined with intelligent analytics fuel an innovative digital platform and ecosystem. Cities globally face striking challenges: climate change, resource scarcity, and population growth. Amidst urbanization, building sustainable and resilient communities is paramount. One way is to create net zero campuses that use technology to reduce energy consumption, emissions, and waste, creating a better future for everyone. Introducing the Campus of the Future, consisting of Smart Campus. Huawei Smart Campus solution makes campuses secure, comfortable, efficient, and enhances service experience. Net Zero Energy. Net zero energy is achieved when the total energy used can be supplied from on-site renewable sources. Huawei's 3 tiers to 2-tier network architecture, AI-powered data centers, and on-site solar solutions help campuses achieve net zero energy faster. Net zero carbon. Campuses must cut emissions from all sources: heating, cooling, transportation, and waste. Huawei is committed to enabling net zero campuses for a sustainable future.
So in the Net Zero Campus, we basically break it down into 3 key stages: net zero energy, net zero carbon, and net zero. Net zero energy is the first achievable or lower hanging fruit where we can reduce our consumption or abatement, generate power on site with clean energy solutions, and of course in this region solar power is one of those key capabilities. And Mr. Charles was talking earlier about some of the Huawei's capabilities in digital power at grid scale. But we also provide the solutions for commercial industrial, that's rooftop solar. So we can produce the energy required that we're consuming and reduce the energy that we're consuming whilst delivering high quality network capabilities. And then manage the remaining better. Now, when we come to managing better, at COP27, we talked about something called the Network Carbon Intensity Index. This was an index which was proposed to basically measure the carbon cost of data. So what is the carbon footprint per terabyte of data? I'm pleased to announce that we have now implemented this into our enterprise networks. So our enterprise network management solutions, which we call iMaster NCE, will be providing the Network Carbon Intensity Index, which will give every campus the ability to understand its carbon footprint and its carbon consciousness, which is why we call it Carbon Conscious ICT. Look forward to further questions as we go ahead on that one. And let me summarize the key points for this, which is firstly, every metropolis can head towards Anicopolis by adopting the principles of sustainability, resilience, and circularity. Transformation from digital cities to autonomous cities, because we mostly live in cities. And by 2050, those numbers just keep going up. And finally, feel free to scan the QR code of Net Zero Campus. This will take you to our mini site where we're giving away more information and more knowledge on what is the Net Zero Campus and how every campus can deliver localized sustainability. And when we do that, our cities and our countries will achieve their net zero targets faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Safder Nazir. Very interesting presentation and very much aligned with the vision of the Global Innovation Hub. I was saying in my introductory remark that one of the challenges that the ICT sector is facing is that they are just focusing on their vertical. They need to go beyond the vertical and serve the many people in cities. So thank you for your presentation. Next presentation will be from Mr. Mohan Munasinghe, former Vice Chair of the UN IPCC. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Could we have the slides, please? Yes. Okay. First, my thanks to Huawei, a giant in innovation for sustainability, for inviting me. And it's my privilege and pleasure to speak to a distinguished group of experts on green innovation and digital technology. I'll talk about global sustainability and the key role for digital technology and green innovation with China's BRI. And I'll build on something that Jeffrey said. Okay, sorry, what am I doing? Okay, sorry. So, the first point I want to make is that achieving sustainable development in the 21st century and the Earth eco-civilization is the main objective we have. So carbon neutrality is one of the elements of that, and I'll speak to that. In 1992, I presented a framework at the Rio Earth Summit, Sustainomics and Balanced Inclusive Green Growth, which has been around for a while, and I believe that it is the key to implementing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and also achieving carbon neutrality. Now, the first element, which today sounds completely deja vu, is at that time in 1992, the Sustainable Development Triangle was kind of unknown. People didn't know how to deal with it. So basically what I said is you need economic growth to raise the poor out of poverty. In the process of growing rich, you don't want to destroy your environment, and at the same time you need empowerment and inclusion to make sure that everybody benefits from that. And any topic like poverty or climate or sustainable development can be analyzed in terms of the three elements of the triangle and the balance and the integration. And the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, to which I also contributed, are really an implementable, unpacked version of the triangle. So here you have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. I think this is really our last chance to make it, to reach that 21st century Earth eco-civilization. We must work together, and I will deal with that in the last part of my presentation, how to achieve unity. But here, the point I want to make is digital technology is part of SDG 9, Innovation, Infrastructure, and Industry. And it is the key to SDG 13, where we are trying to achieve a carbon neutral world, right? But all of the goals have to be dealt with an integrated way. You cannot deal with carbon neutrality and climate by itself. That is extremely important. And I think Huawei understands that. And as an innovative company, it is doing its best across the field of sustainability to achieve this. The other point that I made at that time, which is even more relevant today, is the Sustainable Development Implementation Triangle. See, governments alone are not capable, or less and less capable, of dealing with the complex issues we face. So we need business and civil society, and again, I think Huawei is bringing these together to work together to solve the problems. And basically, business is not part of the problem, it is part of the solution. It is very important to keep that in mind. Now, coming to this, what I call balanced inclusive green growth, it is actually a method to integrate issues like digital technology, climate change policies within a single sustainable strategy, okay? So it is an integrated approach. On carbon neutrality specifically, coming from the global south, our position is that the Western countries need to focus much more on greenhouse gas mitigation because they are responsible for a lot of the carbon dioxide and other gases up there. The loss compensation to the global south is extremely important, and we are deeply grateful actually that the UAE made the first generous contribution and has actually now shamed many of the Western countries into putting small amounts. As Jeffrey mentioned, the US only put in 17 million, but it's a start, right? The global south, on the other hand, is much more interested in adaptation and minimizing the harm to the poor, because the climate injustice is such that those who cause the problem will not face the consequences. It is the poor who will suffer, but the rich put the carbon dioxide up there. Now, this is this balanced, inclusive green growth approach. Very briefly, let me tell you that if you look at per capita greenhouse gas emissions, you see rich countries are now emitting per capita above the safe limit, but on the economic development axis, they are rich, so they can manage. Poor countries are emitting a little, but their GDP is very low. Middle countries are very much in between, okay? Now, what do? You have different solutions depending on the location and path. For the OECD, the rich countries, we know the technologies and the solutions that will help them to decarbonize and dematerialize. So they can maintain a very good quality of life, but reduce the burden on the environment, the transformation part. For the middle countries and the poor countries, we do not want to follow the wasteful path of the rich. We find a tunnel, use the same technology. This is what Huawei is teaching us, okay? And China is a very good example. So we reach the same point, but we don't put a huge burden on the planetary resources. This is balancing economy and environment. And don't forget the social side. We have to make these green growth paths inclusive and pro-poor so that you balance the triangle, and that is what we call balanced, inclusive, socially inclusive, green, economically green growth for the economy, right? Now, very quickly, digital technology is a key, okay, because it supports the inclusive green technology, promotes industry and infrastructure that increases economic productivity. So that part of the triangle is well. Reduces natural resource use and lowers pollution, and it facilitates public participation, inclusion, and boosts sustainable consumption and production. I have put down in detail some of the benefits and the losses, the risks, which we don't have time to go through. But in essence, digital technology is a great tool for achieving the triangle and sustainability. Now, I have worked with the CEOs and boards of some of the biggest multinationals in the world, BASF, Tesco, you name it, I've worked with them. There are three things that have always emerged from those boardrooms. One is sustainability, and triple bottom line is the wave of the future. So all the annual reports, all of them talk about the triple bottom line. Resource use efficiency, all these companies love that because green growth is a natural starting point. It's win-win because you reduce the burden on the environment, but because you are efficient, your costs go down, therefore your profits improve. And this is something we are all working on. Ethical values are key to long-term sustainability. I work with PRME, which is part of the UN system, and which is working to create a new generation of business leaders in leading business schools who will bring ethics into the process. And that is very important to achieve long-term sustainability. Now, let me come to the last part of my challenge. How do we get there? How do we reach this consensus? And here I agree very much with the comments that Jeffrey Sachs made. Just look at the right side. I'm trying to tell you where the solutions will come from, okay? If you look at the economic center of gravity of the planet, in 0 AD, it was somewhere in Asia, actually a little bit in the Middle East. By 1950, it moved to the mid-Atlantic. Why? Because Europe and the US were rich. But look where that center of gravity has moved since then. Back, because you have China, India, Japan. So Asia is going to be one of the leaders. And Huawei will be one of the elements of the private sector that will be leading the charge. Because There's economic and social and environmental resources to do that. We have infrastructure through the BRICS and the BRI and so on. And this is Asia, the continent, is a super connector because it connects north and south and east and west, because that is the heart of cooperation. Now, this some of you may like, some may not like so much. But this is a global south view. The transition to what I call a multipolar world. Until that happens, we have a block. And Jeffrey mentioned this very clearly. We need to break that block. BRICS and the Global South want peaceful trade, prosperity, self-respect, and dignity. Focus on issues like sustainable development goals, climate, poverty, and all that. We're not interested in war, in economic sanctions, and I'm a lifelong campaigner for peace. We want to avoid nuclear war because World War III will be the end of all wars. It will be the end of humanity. On the other hand, we have very poor leadership from the West because it's mainly NATO. It's a military group. On the side of the global south, we have BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus others. They can show the way to peace, prosperity, and sustainability. And you can see, if you look at recent votes in the UN on various issues, 90% or more of the world's population are against, for example, US sanctions on Cuba. They are opposing economic sanctions against Russia. There is censure of Israel's occupation of Palestine and so on. So consistently, the global south is not voting with the West. That is a sign of the times. So just to put it in graphical terms, this is the unsustainable unipolar world that has caused most of the problems that we have. You have USA and Europe, less than 15% of the global population. You have BRICS and the global south, which is 85% or more of the world's population, and they don't have enough of a say in the process. But if you look at GDP, the BRICS GDP is greater than the G7. So the balance is shifting and many more countries are joining BRICS. So we are moving to this multipolar world. This is more of what we need in order to implement all these wonderful solutions that we have. Until we reach that, there will be a blockage, okay? And in this world, of course, what we are seeing is that BRICS and Global South are on one side, US and Europe and allies on the other side. That is the dollarized world. This is more the de-dollarizing world. What we must avoid is walls between the two sides, because unless we have cooperation between the two, we will not be able to implement the solutions we want, okay? And it is only through cooperation that we can do that. Now, just to mention, Sri Lanka, my own country, is on the maritime Silk Route, the Blue Line. We have 2 ports there. In 2019, I wrote a report for Sri Lanka called Sustainable Sri Lanka 2030 Vision for the President of Sri Lanka, in which we talked about BIGG, Balanced Inclusive Green Growth for Sri Lanka. There are many countries that want to follow this path.
Mr. Monan Singh,
let me end with a final message. We face a lot of problems, but we have the solution at hand. I think companies like Huawei and digital technology will lead us to the 21st century eco-civilization. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much. So we will now move straight to our next presenter. This is Mr. Hatem, who will respond to some specific question. In my introductory remark, and also based on what you have heard, there are many statements saying that the green transition will necessarily need to be twin digital and green transition. Why is it that the green transition need to be a twin digital and green transition?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very sorry that because of time, I will not take you through a presentation. I'll just answer a couple of questions because I have another session. Sustainability is really at the core of our strategy. So it's one of the 4 pillars of the strategy of the company. And I think many companies in our sector are looking the same. So part of sustainability, of course, is this green transition. And green transition for us is two-edged, because one edge is what we do inside the company, how we reduce our own carbon footprint. And we have announced last year in COP27 that we plan to be net zero in our Scope 1 and Scope 2 operations in the UAE by 2030. And already in the first year of this, we have reduced our carbon emissions by 23%. And our plan is to hit that target or be ahead of that target. And also in the coming couple of days, we're going to announce the target for the overall operation worldwide. So talking about the 16 other markets within the group. But our role is not only becoming carbon neutral in our business, but in the ICT sector. And I think some of the other presenters today talked about ICT being an enabler for the green transition for other industries. And we are doing this through enabling a lot of sensors, a lot of management for energy for companies, and a lot of optimization. So when we're talking about smart cities, and I think you talked about smart cities, and how we can enable efficient transportation that's AI-based. Already in Dubai, we have several areas where the whole area is handled as a smart city, where garbage collection is based on demand, based on sensors that are put around, based on the time of the day, where even not only the carbon emissions, but even sound is controlled using AI and sensors, which are only enabled by superior ICT. And frankly, for us, 5G has been a key enabler of these technologies. Today, as we are here in COP28, we are covered by one of the first totally green sites, which we actually did in cooperation with Huawei, where not only it has lower energy consumption, but it's completely powered by photovoltaics, which makes it give absolutely no emissions and enable. And again, it's not only just basic communication, it's superior communication. In fact, if any of you using our network, you should test and you'll find that you can get easily 1 gigabit on 5G here, despite the thousands of people being present using their data. So it's a journey that we are embarking on, and we're also working with lots of partners on. And I think only with cooperation between companies in ICT, other businesses that are conscious about their environmental impact, and most importantly, governments and regulators, we're able to really implement this green transition and get, the world to the safety within the 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's, the big unicorn that we're all chasing after. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for this excellent response to this question. I would like to follow up before you leave. So we are now more clear about why the green transition need to be a twin digital and green transition. But what are the most promising digital technology?
What is the most?
What are the most promising type of digital technology on which
I think the promises of this is there is no contradiction between green transition and business. In fact, when we're looking at what happened during the last year, a lot of our transition paid for itself. By reducing our power consumption as a business, we actually managed to create savings that are financing this transition. And I think that as companies embark on this journey, they realize that it's actually a very positive investment. What they do in green transition returns back. Not only return, and we can talk about, the idealistic measures of returning for the future and future generations, but it actually returns for you as a business faster than you think. And we believe that this will be the way forward. And by the way, a lot of this green transition offers a lot better resilience for our networks. When we're thinking about some of our emerging markets, actually switching to photovoltaic or alternative energy or small turbines on top of sites actually ensures that these sites are more resilient despite power outages that happen in some of these markets. So going green is good for business.
So investing in digital for green is good for the client, but also for the shareholder.
Absolutely it is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Now I will,
And I'm sorry, but I have another thing.
now I will shift to Mr. Rice, who will make a presentation. Mr. Rice, you have the floor. The title of his presentation is ICT-based digital innovation and LATAM practice.
Good
Can you
afternoon.
please show the presentation?
So, good afternoon. For me, it's a pleasure to be here in this great moment of our history. I would like to share some thoughts and talk about important project that we are implementing in Brazil nowadays. And natural ecosystem often transcend the human-made political borders. This make efforts such COP28 a necessity if we are to make real progress to warranting a timely green transition. Similarly, the solution to matter of the magnitude of number one, climate change. Number two, protection of adversely impacted population. Number three, promotion of sustainability are not clear-cut. It's necessary to concatenate innovation, drawing contribution from numerous domains. In this sense, information and communication technologies play a fundamental role in bringing together the interested parties, driving innovation in the collection of technological environmental information, but also preserving local communities in their remote regions. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals framework is a standing testimony to this, as many of its targets and indicators reflect the ICT issues at its core. Even though green transition is a global responsibility, local initiatives are most welcome. I will highlight here one of such efforts which is currently being implemented in the Amazon region in Latin America. This Sustainable and Integrate Amazon program, known as PAIS in the Brazilian Portuguese, comprises 11 fluvial optical fiber backbone networks with nearly 9,000 kilometers of total extension, bringing real benefits to more than 4 million inhabitants of the northern world part of Brazil. Other countries in the Amazon region might also soon profit from this project, which is being conducted by Anatel. This project adds one more layer of connectivity the Amazon region, which can be used by federal and local government, and also by local populations, to tend their necessities. In terms of environmental protection, this empowers ground-based sensing and monitoring solutions. These solutions adds up to the long-standing satellite imaging technology and that are masterfully implemented in Brazil. To emphasize this close relationship between ICT on the one hand and sustainability on the other hand, please allow me to identify some specific goals and targets that mostly impacted by our project. In my understanding, SDG 9, which calls for the international community to first build resilient infrastructure, 2, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, 3, foster innovation is the most relevant starting point, especially when it comes to target 9.1. This target requires us to develop sustainable infrastructure to support economic development and human well-being. The development of advanced telecommunication infrastructure in the Amazon region shall promote the integration of the communities and digital economy. Another relevant Brazilian project that I will present in other panel in this COP28 is the joint effort with the International Telecommunication Union is a pledge to bring a new standard of emergency communication into use. Those populations who live by Amazon River will only be reached in such cases if they connected to a telecommunications network in the first place. Speak of ITU, last month here in Dubai, during the radio assembly of this radio communication sector, the organization approved the framework for the next generation of mobile communications, IMT 2030, more commonly known as 6G. Brazil and other partners, such as India, work together to include sustainability as an underlying basis of which the telecommunication standard that will be developed. Those are examples from ICT sector that bring optimism to the still very bleak climate debate. If this technology is adherent to the environmental concerns, those innovations can be driving force to bring about the future we wish to grant for forthcoming generation. Regarding connections and sustainable development, Anatel has been working on a wide range of efforts to attain the UN SDGs. The results are encouraging, and I expect to present them to you in a following event like this. We are, in this moment in Brazil, implement big projects in the Amazon, and as you can see, we are very proud to show you, and we know that we have to face a big challenge, but we are convinced that we can overcome it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I would like to invite you to provide a round of applause to all our panelists, and then we will move to the next panel. Thank you so much.
Mute. One mute.
Attention because, okay. Can you please take your seats? You need to give the example.
I'll be. Excuse me, can you please take your seats? May I request you to please take your seats? We are starting the next session. Sorry.
It doesn't matter where you sit. Just so you know, you'll be second. Okay. Just going to put it behind your neck, and you do have slides.
So, good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah. You do have slides? Yep. So you'll be going fifth? Okay. That sounds good.
Can we start the session? Those that would like to, please go away from the room.
Can I also switch the slides from here? No, with the clicker, yeah. It's, okay. Once when it comes, just that I don't need to get up. I think this is much better. Whom are we missing?
So, good afternoon. I will be very long, as you can imagine. You are lucky that my voice will allow me to make a long speech, but I would like to welcome everybody here to the second part of the Huawei session. That will be moderated by Kevin. Kevin will introduce all the speakers, but first of all, I'd like to invite
like this.
Even
like
Chow
not
to
as
come
good
to the stage.
like what he's doing.
And
If you do it this way, like a rock star.
give a short keynote about the second session. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, dear friends and partner. Good afternoon. My name is Ivan. Yeah, you can call me Ivan. Ivan Xiao. My role in Huawei is for the strategy and industry development. The most important thing is just as you all know Huawei, we are as a technical and solution vendor. We not only just create the value to the end user with the business value, but we also think technical is important, but it's not enough. We have to, especially when we face the green topic, is so important, not only from the technical side, but also we need to work together with all the industry. We know from the union side, they have a very good vision for the green and for the digitalization. But how to move it forward? One side is for Huawei. We keep very heavily for the R&D investment, and we hope to serve our customer. But we also think we also need, if we want to be a more sustainability and healthy industry, we need to work together more closely with all the third-party organizations, such as we need the standard, global standardization is so important because when we talking about green, it's not just about the business and economic value, but also environment value and social value. For the common language of the standard, it will benefit all the ecosystem, including the end user, including the vendors. Another one is if we want to do these things more efficiently, we also need a common vision and a common method how to do the green and digital transformation. Green is also need methodology. We are so lucky because we have a very important global partner such as ITU. ITOT has launched a very important standard under SG5. We call the L.1480. This standardization, this standard help us to have a common language to justify the ICT, how to empower the digital transformation and how to help each vertical to do the green and the digitalization. Another good news, we also have Jesse. Jesse create a very a very important methodology how to do the digital transform and the greenization. How to do this method help us. We have the common vision and direction, and help us work together. Again, I'm honored to come here, and thanks for the global leaders, the third-party organizations. They can help all the ecosystem more open, more collaborative, and more sustainability and more healthy. For Huawei, we hope we can bring the technical and the solution, work and contribute to the standard organization, to the standard, and have the practice, to support the vision and do a lot of practice with the initiative, especially for the Global Green Act. Again, thank you. Thank you. I hope for this session, I think for Huawei, we also can learn more. And we also hope contribute more. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm Kevin Thompson, the Chief Operations Officer of Jesse.org, a partner of Huawei's. I'll be the moderator for This Is Your Final panel of the day, focused on methodology and standards. And we're going to be cycling through a handful of panelists. We will be extending the close time from 6 to 6:15. I was told we're able to go to about 6:15. So just want to level set expectations with everyone. You can see here our panelists, and I'm going to introduce each of them as we start to step into the conversation with each of them so that we can move ourselves along quickly. And I'd like to start with Dr. Chongyang Liu, the Vice Chief Engineer of Telecommunication Technology Labs at China ICT Communications Institute. Dr. Liu, are you able to join us virtually? Are you with us?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
I think that noise is what's coming from the other room.
Yes.
Can you?
If they start playing dance music, we're supposed to dance too. So, okay.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
maybe turn up your volume just a little bit, please.
The presentation is okay?
It is perfect. Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks very much for the invitation. It's my pleasure to speak here. I want to share some cases relevant innovation for green methodology and practice in China. About 3 years ago, China announced its carbon peak and carbon neutrality goal to the world. Digital technologies play an important role in enabling carbon neutrality and responding to climate change. According to ITU, digital technologies could help reduce global carbon emissions by 14 to by 15 to 40%. This number by JC is about 20%. According to WEF, ICTs could reduce carbon emissions 10 times than ICT itself. We know carbon footprint. We call carbon handprint for the reduction of carbon footprint by ICT and other methods. ICT carbon handprint is to produce as more products, services as possible with less energy and resources by applying digital technology, thus improving energy resource efficiency and reducing carbon emissions as well. Compared to carbon footprint, carbon handprint has a positive impact on climate change. The bigger, the better. But how to calculate the potential of digital empowerment carbon handprint? Here we give the calculation formula. Net energy reduction equals to baseline scenario emission. Deduct the emissions after using digital enabling solution. The rebound effect should be considered. Here shows the framework of carbon handprint assessment process, 5 steps, including evaluation scope determination, carbon emission resource identification, scenario setting, carbon handprint accounting, and enabling effect evaluation and analysis. This is the smart mine empowerment cases in China, 5G mining track for auto driving, remote control, intelligence equipment, 5G private network, edge facilities, and other digital solutions help steel mine less workers and more efficiency, and have green and low carbon effect at the same time. This is the ETC cases compared to the manual channel. The ETC channel does not need to wait in line, no parking, no cash payment. The waiting time reduced from 14 seconds to 3 seconds, and the lane capacity will be increased by 46 times. It improves the passing rate of vehicles and reduces the energy consumption of vehicles, totally reduce 60,000 tons of carbon emissions per year. So that is my quick presentation. Thanks for your listening. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Next, I would like to move to Christian Massem, who's in here in the room with us. He is a partner at Detcon International. Christian, see if we have your presentation slides up.
So let's see if we can get them up.
Yeah, so it's like the Olympics.
Other than that, maybe let's start already.
Yes, please.
So thanks, Kevin, for the kind introduction, also for the invitation of being here and being able to talk about the results we gathered since we had a last international presentation back in Barcelona earlier this year. So what we did is basically try to enhance an ICT enablement framework, which can be used for the industry and industry applications to really measure the impact we see from the use of ICT in different industrial domains, not only on the top level, but really where they act with their use cases and their applications as we have it. So where we started, well, you can't see the complete framework right now on the sides. It's quite simple. What you see normally is the PCF, as you have seen it with a product carbon footprint, which is just used for trying to compare basically different solutions with each other when you try to enhance digitization in a company. we will see later on just a few examples, and two, namely, where we recently just validated this framework, just to give you a glimpse of an idea what kind of impact you can give with new technology. And in this case, we chose, for example, status quo installation in manufacturing, as well in logistics, in comparison to what you can achieve when you set up, for example, a campus network with 5G or 5G in general. And the other two effects, of course, are way more important still than that. And otherwise, you would be just comparing apples with pears. So what we are looking for is basically what does it do when you bring in new technology. Here, just as an example, 5G, because it enables way more. All of a sudden, you can do some use cases which weren't possible or not on the scale as formerly. And the other question, of course, the tertiary effect you have to take into account is what do you do with that gain of efficiency, with that gain of performance? Do you basically lock it in and put it in as savings in the end and also reduced emissions, or do you use it to be more productive in the end? A choice every company, everyone has to make then for themselves, see how green they are, but we want to show how big and how far the possibility reaches in that regard. Let's continue with that. So the framework, you can see at a later point, which is basically including all of it in order to compare it all together. So what we have in mind is also how do we leverage it when we have the different effects we are looking at. So I was talking about two examples. Where do we start? First, let's go into the production line as it looks like nowadays. You still see a lot of manual labor, for example, in an assembly line, as you're used to. And not that much process control or other automation of processes as we have it at the moment. So, first step in the process is basically to define the system which is behind it. So what does belong to it, but what does not when you change it, when you add this new 5G technology and the use cases enabled by it in the end. So this is a crucial step if you want to compare it also to the new technology, to have a system really confined to the elemental points when in the end. Then we can really take a look at what is happening in the industrial side here, where we find Clever in the middle of Berlin, basically, a logistics setup, as you would have nowadays with normal network infrastructure, with normal process optimization or application interfaces, if you have it. And also manufacturing cases where now with 5G, for example, intralogistics and other exemplary work, also remote experts and more support and others could be implemented in the end. So now you can see on the two sides the former processes as we had it. This is just a very typical example also of other industry sites we witnessed at this moment, or we see so far, and many being on the transition to the next stage, if enabled by 5G or not. So here you see, for example, what we could deduct from terms of emissions. First, just coming from basically the assets which you install with their production costs and so on. But the more dominant one, when you see it under the picture in the light blue, is basically the operational costs of the carbon emissions which are caused. Now, with a new setup, for example, with 5G enabled, you see now in comparison to before, a lot more automated processes, more automation, not necessarily due to the want for reduction of manual labor, but also the deficiency of finding new qualified people to do the job. So they are anyhow going in that direction, logistics as well as manufacturing, as you have it here. And then you do that calculation in comparison with the same elements we identified before, so that it's apple to apple and not apple to pear comparison. You can see that there is already a shift in initial emissions due to the production phase of the assets itself, as well as on the operational side, on the operational costs in the end. And looking at both examples, we could see quite a big reduction, especially in the operational costs over a year and the following years up on. You see that with the introduction of 5G, new optimized systems altogether, we found over 90% of reductions were possible. That, I think we have to clarify, is not only because 5G is there, but what 5G enabled in the end. Also bringing in kind of new automated and electrified vehicles instead of the formerly used forklifts, as well as automating some of the very manual-driven processes which are quite error-prone, and reducing also the effect those had on the overall process efficiency in the end. But I think it shows already quite a promising path on where it could go and also what we could reach in the end. And so we want to go with that, a very clear and transparent process and framework where you can actually measure what's the impact when you are procuring new ICT, when you are installing new digitalization solutions in a company, that you can compare it to one another or to the status quo as you had it, and can then go not only from maybe coming still from something like green marketing, putting up a number and advertising it, to real green innovation, because then you can really show what is the impact of new innovative technology overall and holistically. And hopefully that leads to more and more green operation, since you can measure and compare it to others. So that's what we're advocating for. Very much looking forward to proceed on that road and seeing the impact and comparing it one by one in real life situations, also secondary and tertiary. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. We'll look forward to seeing where you get to with step 3 at the next, by the next COP. Okay, we're now going to move back to virtual, please. And we're going to invite Dr. Johannes Fischer, the Chief Researcher in the Department of Photonic Networks and Systems at Fraunhofer HHI. Are you with us, Dr. Fischer?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Are you able to increase your volume just a little bit, please?
Is it better like this?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay. So thank you very much for the introduction, and good afternoon, everybody. So I would also like to thank the UN Climate Change Innovation Hub for inviting me today. I am very sorry that I cannot be with you on site today. However, I think being able to speak to you remotely is a very good example of how digital technologies can really make a contribution to reduce carbon emissions. So what we are doing at the F5G Open Lab is we are researching and evaluating applications of ubiquitous optical fiber connectivity to enable the green and digital transformation, for example, of the manufacturing sector, which is one of the big contributors to greenhouse gas emissions. And what we have done in the framework of the F5G Open Lab is we have set up an industrial test field in the Berlin urban area in order to assess the benefits of green information and communication technologies to the manufacturing sector. And in this mission, the F5G Open Lab collaborates with other stakeholders in the ecosystem, like, for example, standards developing organizations, in particular the ETSI Industry Specification Group F5G. In this framework, we are evaluating different manufacturing use cases, such as cloud-based vision inspection, where ICT can provide real benefits to this sector. And in this presentation, I would like to share one particular case study focusing on large manufacturing sites that stretch over hundreds of meters in each dimension. And these factory sites typically require more than 1,000 fixed access points each of these access points providing a data rate of at least 1 gigabit Ethernet per point. So how are these traditional industrial networks set up? So traditionally, industrial fixed networks employ cascaded Ethernet switches, which you can see here in an architectural picture, where the data from the machine sensors and other data sources on the factory shop floor is collected by access switches and then aggregated in another switch layer before it finally reaches the core switches, which are then connected, for example, to an edge cloud environment where this data is being processed. And this kind of architecture actually results in a tremendous effort for cabling. You need cabinets and cooling for the switches. So what could be an alternative to such an architecture? That could be F5G passive optical networks. And how do they look like? They use a much simplified architecture by pushing the optical fiber straight up to the machines on the factory shop floor. By that, completely eliminating the aggregation layer, which you can see here in the middle by employing passive fiber splitters that actually do not require any kind of power supply. And to summarize, that optical networks in factories provide several benefits. Among others, we see a simplified architecture and cabling. There are no network cabinets required, and also optical fibers do not have any electromagnetic interference. But the question is, of course, what is their contribution to the power consumption during the operation phase, and by that also to the carbon footprint of the manufacturing processes. So in order to answer that, there is the following analysis, which is based on some assumptions, mainly 1 gigabit Ethernet per access point. And in this analysis, the power consumption values are based on typical power consumption values provided by the data sheets of the different components. And on the right-hand side, you see the calculated power consumption of different factory sizes, ranging from 1,000 access points to 6,000 access points. And what you see is that an increasing size of the installation, the benefit of the F5G passive optical networks over the traditional switch architecture is also increasing and reaches up to 35% for large installations. Now, this is, of course, only the ICT picture. So what about the rest of the infrastructure, in particular the power consumption of the operational technology? That means the machines and sensors. So in this study, we measured the power consumption of a typical vision inspection station consisting of robot, video cameras, and conveyor belts. And if you scale that to the complete factory, then you see that the operational technology is actually dominating the total power consumption in the factory compared to the ICT itself. So therefore, as we have already heard also from Christian, we think that it's paramount to also quantify not only the first order effect of the ICT, but also the positive impact that ICT can have on reducing the power consumption also of the operational technology and the whole use case. And as we will also hear in one of the later presentations, standardization efforts are currently underway to provide guidance and validated methodologies on how to perform such an analysis. That brings me to the summary. So some key messages. We have seen that F5G networks can significantly reduce power consumption in industrial scenarios. The F5G Open Lab already provides measurement capabilities to quantify ICT first-order effects, for example, according to standardized methodologies such as ITU-T L1333. The F5G Open Lab actively collaborates with other stakeholders, such as the Alliance for IoT Innovation, AIoTI, and standardization within ETSI ISG F5G to improve existing methodologies and capabilities to quantify ICT benefits. And in the future, the F5G Open Lab is looking forward to also align with ITU-T L1480 standardization to fully evaluate not only the first order, but also higher order effects of the ICT in the manufacturing sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fischer. We appreciate you joining. I recognize you had some snow in Germany that made it impossible for you to join us here in person. Thank you for joining us virtually. Our last presenter presenting virtually, Federico Mena. Are you with us, Federico?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon. Can you hear me well?
It's a little bit faint.
Let me try to increase the volume. Is it better?
That's better. So, and for those of you here in the room or joining us online, Federico is the CEO of EIT Digital. So with that, Federico, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you for the invitation. As Johannes said, it's great that thanks to digital technologies we can participate remotely and contribute to reducing the carbon footprint as well. So I will share a couple of slides about what we do at EIT Digital, contributing to the green transition. For those of you that don't know us, we are an ecosystem of part of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. We have now just turned 13, so we are not a new initiative. We are in, let's say, in our maturity phase. And we are an ecosystem that spans across Europe and Silicon Valley with approximately 350 organizations comprising universities, corporates, startups, investors, and research and technology organizations. And over the years, we achieved quite a few results that you can see on this slide. And what we do on top of our ecosystem, we run innovation and education program with the ambition of creating a generation of entrepreneurs and leaders that are not only able to know and manage technology, but also to implement this technology and make innovation happen. And this, of course, relates to any kind of innovation, but more and more we see that green innovation is becoming crucial for us, but also for the planet. And when it comes to innovation, I like to show you this slide. As you can see, our ambition is to create, starting from our students, to create the next generation of global unicorns, possibly from Europe, that are able to reach the rest of the world. And at all these stages, we see more and more over the past years that it's important to combine the sustainability component and, more importantly, the green transition with the digital component. And let me show a couple of examples just to jump in to the heart of the discussion. So, for example, you see some companies that we supported recently to our growth services looking to raise Series A funding. One of them is called WSense from Italy. They were raising 10 million and they do underwater IoT for supporting, let's say, the blue economy in a way. Mitiga, another one you see at the bottom left, is a company from Spain using a sophisticated algorithm, truly deep tech, to work on climate risk prevention. And the last one is Robotech, is a company from Germany. They're also using a sophisticated deep tech algorithm for a sustainable agriculture. So you see that, and these are 3 examples of approximately 10 companies that we supported this year. So you see that out of 10, 3 were targeting the green transition with digital technology. So it shows how relevant the ICT can be for such an important topic. And to complement this, as an organization, we just joined the European Green Digital Coalition because we really feel that with digital we can contribute to a true green transition. And on top of the innovation and education programs, another important highlight that I'd like to share with you is what we do at a thought leadership level. We support through studies the decision makers in policy making. And we cover a range of topics, but one of our most successful reports is called Digital Technology and the Green Economy, which we launched approximately 1 year ago. And this report analyzes the impact that digital technology can have on the green economy. And of course, I can spend a lot of time talking about it, but given the time we have available today, I will focus mostly on the 4 main outcomes of the report. And you can download the report on our website if you want to understand more about how we did it and what was the methodology that we used. But there are 4 main outputs of this report. And one is very much in line with what has been said by the presenters before me. So we need an agreed framework at the international level to model and quantify the impact of digital technology on energy consumption. At this stage, the framework is pretty fragmented, so it's very difficult to compare apple to apple, like it was said before. Secondly, if we look at the ICT sector only, the consumption is approximately 10% of the total energy consumption. So while someone may say we should also work on making digital technology more green, that's true. 10% is still relevant. But I think the impact that digital technologies can have to other sectors is way bigger than the increment that we can achieve in making green digital technologies themselves. And then the third is that when you see how digital technologies can help or support the green transition of other sectors, that varies significantly from one sector to the other. So if we want to achieve a true green transition, we should probably start focusing on those sectors that have a higher chance to immediately make a significant reduction in energy and CO2 consumption. And that's why we should probably prioritize those in order to move faster, given the importance of this topic. And last but not least, this was also mentioned before, rebound effects are also an important attention point. The energy saving that we achieve in one domain are often compensated by the energy consumption in other domains. And this can be, of course, related to behavioral effects, but also to structural factors. So the main item here is that we need to work with taxation and incentives to make this, to address these rebound effects. So the summary of these 4 points is that the green transition needs the digital transition as a main element. So ICT is truly an enabler, but also that it cannot be achieved by the public working alone or by the private working alone. It's truly a joint effect of the private and the public working together to achieve a common goal. And that's the only way to achieve that. And that's my short presentation, and I'm happy to take any question later on. And thanks again.
And thank you, Federico. Now, returning to the room, we have 2 more presenters. I'm going to go down to the end of our row here. Mr. Damir Filipovic, the AIOTI Secretary General. You're up next, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for having me here. Similar to Christian, in a way, this is a continuation of our discussion that we somehow kicked off in Barcelona in March. And I'm very happy to see actually from all of the speakers who were more or less there as well, some progress, which is very important. So in order not to kind of repeat what was already kind of said, which is good, let's maybe just complement with a couple of things. So we heard about European Green Digital Coalition. That's very important, and that was, I think, impetus for a lot of us being either member or supporting member to try to work on the contributions, basically, to the coalition. On one hand side, having a better understanding of what is actually happening, and then with the possible methodologies and application of the methodologies. So what we basically announced that we will do in March was to try to work on the methodology. In between, of course, we have ITU-T SG5 and HCTC EE, if I said all the acronyms well. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
That was for you.
That was
Thank
for,
you,
thank
thank
you very
you.
much. So basically, that work came, I think, very well because they are trying also to update already mentioned recommendations like ITU-T L 1480, 1410, simplifying LCA, simplified LCA. And this is all very important work. So we try to see, okay, how we can try to contribute to this. So I will skip this one and this one because this is, I would say, more generic, which I think more or less everybody who is in the topic knows. And come to the first one, which looks very complicated. And I will also not go into details because you can find all in our report, because we have, let's say, 2 basic scenarios developed in a couple of sub-scenarios, 6 in total. You can all find basically in the report, and that's not the point to present it here. The point is to say that we try to work on the basically formula, on the equation, how to calculate avoided CO2 emissions when applied advanced ICT solutions, and in particular with IoT and edge computing. And you have it, of course, with the baseline scenario, when you add advanced ICT solution, and then also when there is a case of the reuse and recycling, which we still need to work more, I would say, in the future. So this is basically the second one with the closed loop for the recycled products, just as an, again, example. And now, of course, the question is, okay, great, you have equations, now what? Now, of course, the key is basically how to actually work in implementation. So we presented these equations to the ITU-T and HCT CEE. And you see basically the list of the recommendations that I already mentioned. And now the question is, of course, what are the next steps? It's not, of course, only about the equation. You know that the proof is always in a pudding. So now you need to make the pudding out of the recipe. And what we will actually try to do is basically, as you could see here, we have some recommended actions. Of course, there will be continuation of the collaboration with ITU-T and ETSI. We will try to also bring those results to the European Green Digital Coalition. And again, this is really complement to what other colleagues mentioned today, what others are doing. This is not something, I would say, in itself or in its, let's say, something hanging in the air. And the key points of this equation is really to help showing how ICT can bring CO2 emissions in other sectors. So this is, I would say, a sort of the measurements, one potential measurement of the basically effects of digitalization and how ICT can contribute basically, of course, to the green objectives. And how we are kind of trying to do this, you can see here in the next steps. That's basically to find concrete examples. Johannes already mentioned one. We have a list of our test beds that we are collecting within our community, over 60 of them, so we will try to find also some cases there. And then also to find use cases through possibly EU-funded projects, which would be, I would say, good to apply in various domains like manufacturing, mobility, and agriculture, and so on. Basically, those equations just to show how this can be. What I think the beauty of it is that even if you don't have at the moment something concrete that you will have in mind, you can build the use case, which you can actually apply either in some, for example, EU-funded projects, and use this equation to show additional value that goes beyond just research and innovation. So this is, I think, where we are basically today, what we try to do, and I'm just happy that after basically a bit more than 6 months, we came to have the equation, but now, of course, the next step, which is, I think, even more important, is to show somehow in practice, in some concrete examples, how this can work, and then bring these results and have another set of the discussion with other stakeholders to see how this can be then basically implemented further. Thank you.
And thank you. Be careful. Oh, great. So, Paolo.
Yes.
Wrapping us up here. Paolo Gema, ITU SG5 Chairman. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you for all the publicity about ITU. It's nice to have a lot of publicity on this because it's mentioned a lot. Okay, ITU-T, study group 5, where I am the chairman of our working party and dealing with all these items, is making standard. We are a standard organization. We have defining checklist, methodology, try to give a tool for people to arrive at a common understanding on how to do a solution, on how to measure the benefit, because differently we can have different people that can give different number, and all are true at the end. We said a lot of speakers before about L4080. L4080 is, this is the official standard that we write 2 years ago, if I remember well, exactly. And which is in the standard? It's a structured methodology approach. So the idea to have a really structured approach how to assess, how to measure the benefit of use ICT in our sector. This is the scope of the standard. The standard was approved in a relatively short time. This time is okay. Now we have, okay, I said before by them, there is an evolution of the standard. We are collaborating with ETSI, the European Telecommunication Standard Institute, in which we have a very long collaboration. This time we are collaborating also with IoT, that is very important for us because it can bring us some example of application, some practical example of application is very good. We hope to work with our organization if it's possible. We will see on that, maybe with the European Green Digital Coalition and so on. What is inside? Inside is just which effort to consider. I don't go too much in detail because different will make 1 hour of discussion. So we'll consider just what is said, the first effort that is just, okay, what is the mission of the ICT service that you are introducing? We consider the rebound, that is a human behavior that, oh, it's nice to use this, I can use more, and then increase the mission. And at the end, the second effort, that is the benefit to use the ICT. Making, at the end, you see which is the result to introduce the ICT service. And it's very important, this calculation, because sometimes you can have a benefit to introduce an ICT service in a sector, in some service, but sometimes no. And you need to see if you have really a benefit or not. And this is important because it's not I introduce ICT is always good. Depend. We can discuss on this. And also we consider different scenarios, as I said below, in, okay, which is the actual scenario. I introduce the ICT, then after some time I can make an assessment to see which is really the benefit and make an estimation on what will be the future. This is something that is inside of the actual standard, and we see how to improve, maybe simplify something, because when it was wrote, someone think that, okay, this is completely clear. Other people read, as usual happened during the standard, said, sorry, I don't understand nothing what you write. And this is what is happening. Just to go on other standard that we have applied on and we standardized, we have worked on the circular economy, circular design criteria. That is a standard that said is a practical standard on how to apply circular economy to design. It's really a tool for designer of equipment to check, to have a checklist and to see if what they design is okay, is a circular economy product. They can give like a score on the circularity of a product. And this should be very useful when you design a product. And it's very simple to apply. And this is what we think that is necessary to industry, like the standard that was mentioned before, the L4010 Simplify, that is the idea to have a simple standard to make estimation of LCA, of LCA analysis of a product before the product was finalized. Because when the product is finalized, you have a product, you cannot change nothing at the end. Then we have, okay, the L4010, that this is a very good standard, what we call is a basis of our methodology for the assessment of product, service, and network. So it's a very good standard, but sometimes it's becoming complicated to apply. Then we have, moving to the efficiency, we have a L4041, that is the efficiency to see how much is efficiency a 5G network, for example, or 4G. And it's very important to have an estimation, an idea, a real measure on how a network is efficient. This is for mobile. We are working now for fixed network to have another standard of the same topic for fixed network. And the last that was mentioned in the previous session, the L333, is another time. It's a simple tool to see how each the carbon emission of a network, any type of network, given a KPI that is very simple. It's the total carbon emission divided by the quantity of data that is managed by the network. And this is something that is very easy to implement, but we see before that we have an implementation now, and it's easy to calculate, and it's possible to use any type of network, from operator network, from enterprise network, in an industrial network, because don't take care of what is inside the network. You look only at the boundary and the total energy consumption on that. And thank you very much to you.
And thank you, Paolo. And that concludes the methodology and standards section of today's agenda. And that concludes today's agenda. So with that, I will say thank you, everyone, and thank you to our host, Huawei. And a reception is being set up in the back of the room. We hope you're able to stay and join us. Thank you very much.